G'day, my fellow media collectors. I'm Troy, and today we're looking at Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths. Part 1 is an animated superhero film that was produced by Warner Brothers Animation and DC Entertainment, with it released in digital format on the 9th of January 2024. This movie is the first installment of a 3-part animated adaptation of the classic miniseries Crisis on Infinite Earths, and was created to conclude the Tomorrowverse continuity of the DC animated movie universe and allow for the fresh start of the new James Gunn-led DC animated movie universe. The movie was dedicated to George Pérez, one of the original creators and artists of the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic book, who passed away in 2022. This Blu-ray has a runtime of 93 minutes. This Blu-ray version was released on the 23rd of January 2024. And it was distributed by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. The multiverse faces annihilation as an antimatter wave consumes entire realities. A cosmic being known as the Monitor assembles heroes from multiple Earths to counter this existential threat, while on Earth 1, Barry Allen, the Flash, struggles with time, loss, and his relationship with Iris. Meanwhile, a powerful android named Amazo, created by Professor Ivo, was hijacked by Lex Luthor and threatens metahumans across the worlds. As the Justice League battles to stop the wave, Barry travels to Earth 3 to confront the Crime Syndicate, a group of evil counterparts of the Justice League. Using the Speed Force, he constructs a vibrational cosmic tuning forks to shield the multiverse, briefly living a lifetime with Iris in a pocket timeline. The film ends on a somber note, with Barry making the sacrifice needed to power the towers. But as the wave accelerates, the fate of reality remains uncertain, setting up the stakes for part 2. Now look, the script for this film takes on a nearly impossible task of trying to condense one of the densest, most sprawling crossover events in comic book history into a 93-minute animated film, which is no small feat in itself. And look, for the most part, it succeeds in streamlining the narrative, but it does so by narrowing its scope to more character-driven moments rather than attempting to replicate the just overwhelming scale of the original comics. Look, in order to achieve this, they had a very streamlined approach to the story, and while practical, it means that much of the grandeur, shall we say, of the Crisis and its hundreds of characters across infinite worlds is, well, lost, which may have some fans of the original comic feeling maybe a little shortchanged on the scope of this film. And look, that's been really overly reduced for this scale. For me, I found that Barry Allen's story throughout this movie was the real emotional core to this movie, by making the Flash the audience's anchor. And the script does a really good job of grounding all that cosmic chaos into something like of more personal stakes that the audience can probably relate to a little more, as his relationship with Iris and his conflicted role as a hero creates a real human thread that keeps the film from being overwhelming by its multiversal spectacle, shall we say. And I think it did well to balance the exposition throughout the movie, as the script walks this very fine line between cosmic jargon and digestible dialogue, and even with some trimming to the original story, they did well, but the script unfortunately cannot escape some of the info dumps about vibrational towers, antimatter, and multiverse physics for the story to really make any sense. I feel the cohesion and pacing feels pretty well done for what they really wanted to achieve with this movie, and the script works best as this real foundation for those future installments. I mean, the trade-offs is the sheer density of the original comic for more of focus and accessibility, centering on Barry Allen's humanity as a sort of a counterpoint to this whole cosmic annihilation. Now, while it does lack some of the awe and grandeur of the source material, its clear structure and emotional grounding make it a really effective opening act that kind of acts as a great springboard for the remaining two movies in the trilogy. Look, at the end of the day, it's a thoughtful and streamlined adaptation of the script that plays it safe to a degree, setting the stage for bigger payoffs in parts 2 and 3. And look, for that, I'm going to go with a 26 out of 30. So this movie is based on the DC Comics storyline Crisis on Infinite Earths from 1985 and 1986 by Marv Wolfman and George Pérez, and was turned into a film trilogy with the purpose of concluding the DC animated Tomorrowverse movies, which began back in 2013. Now, while the film draws a lot from the original Crisis on Infinite Earths comics, there is a but, and the filmmakers have noted that certain tragic or emotional moments from the OG comics had to be cut or modified for the movie due to the, well, let's face it, massive scope of the original comics that had hundreds of DC heroes and villains across countless Earths to cover. So some of the changes from the comics were Amazo's altered role, as he was given more of a central place in this script that ties to the questions of humanity and power, whereas in the comics, Amazo isn't a central part to the crisis at all. Another point is the movie places more emphasis on the destruction of Earth 3 and the Crime Syndicate, while in the comics this was one of many Earths consumed in the opening wave, so you don't really get to see much in the comics. And Monitor's role is simplified, as the comics, he was more of this mysterious and manipulative, orchestrating all the events across the universes, where, as in this movie, it just simplifies his schemes for, I suppose, more clarity in that single movie format. And lastly, the film trims the cast of characters down to a manageable ensemble with the Justice League, Crime Syndicate, Amazo, and a few supporting characters, which, let's face it, is understandable due to just the sheer scale of this story.
It's a huge, 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 huge.
That's huge. So huge.
Now the cast, which I will grab from here. And as you can see, the cast list is very long. And we get all of our regular voice actors from the Tomorrowverse. They're all back in their roles, and even a few special guests here and there show up as well. But I do like a lot of the voice cast in these Tomorrowverse movies. But for me, out of all of the voices in these movies, there has been one standout, not only in this film, but across all of those films. And I guess you would have to say it's the star of this film, Matt Bomer as Barry Allen, aka The Flash. Bomer brings a performance needed for this role, as it is a very pivotal role in making this movie either work or fail. And his outstanding performance as the emotional anchor of the film, well, he just absolutely nails it. I mean, Bomer is earnest and vulnerable and full of that mix of optimism and guilt that really defines Barry's character, bringing a sense of warmth and humanity to the character that gets you invested in seeing Barry's journey through his life and his efforts to save the multiverse. And of course, we have Jensen Ackles as Batman. Now, Ackles continues to be a fantastic Batman for the Tomorrowverse movies, and his Batman has a grit and gravitas you would expect. He's sharp, commanding, and delivers even the clunkiest multiverse is collapsing lines with the conviction that brings you into the movie. Now, Stato Katic as Wonder Woman and Superwoman. Now, this movie, Katic pulls a double duty, voicing both Diana and her Earth 3 counterpart, Superwoman. Now, she gives Wonder Woman a regal, authoritative presence, while her Superwoman performance drips with the menace and arrogance you would expect. She is a talented voice actor when you can do a dual performance in a film and have it feel like two completely different characters. And I've got to give a little shout out to Liam McIntyre as Johnny Quick, as he does a great Australian accent. And trust me when I say, as an Australian, when you hear people try and do an Aussie accent in movies, 9 times out of 10 they either sound British or Kiwi and never Australian. So props to him for nailing the accent. Cracker job, mate. Now, as far as everyone else goes, the supporting cast each brings their own energy and styles to their characters. Granted, there is not much time for really anyone else to shine outside of a few main actors, but everyone shows up and does a great job for the small roles that they have. They were all professional, charismatic, and they were even able to make some of the heavy exposition at least sound compelling to a degree. And look, for that, for all of it, I'm going to give this a 15 out of 20. Okay, let's have a look at the disc and case, and as you can see, that is an absolute cracker cover. I love these digital painted covers. They look fantastic. It's across the board on all 3 of them, and they are outstanding. Now at the side, well, that's pretty much standard for the sides at the moment. And then if we look at the back, not too bad at all, not too bad at all. So let's have a look on the inside, and yeah, unfortunately, just a pretty plain disc, nothing too special. You know me, I love a good colored disc. But overall, other than the disc I think is letting me down, I reckon the rest of it looks pretty damn good. Like I said, that cover is awesome. I really do love it. So for that, I'm going to give this, yeah, I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10. So there are just 2 special features on this Blu-ray, and they are Crisis Prime, the filmmaker's vision featurette, and the Selfless Speedster featurette. Both are the usual standard featurettes about the project that DC are known for, but I did really enjoy both actually. It was really good to see where the filmmakers were trying to take the movie and all of the things that they did over the past movies in the Tomorrowverse, where they dropped all these little hints and clues to tie them all up in these final movies, which I reckon was a great touch. Then we also have the Selfless Speedster featurette, which delves into the Flash's story and how his role in these movies and how he has sort of affected things throughout the whole Tomorrowverse, which I found to be really great, like really insightful into anything you may have missed or not noticed over the course of these movies. And for me, turns out I missed a few things. I mean, overall, some of these are some great featurettes to watch, and they really help you understand, and I really think enjoy the movie even more. Even there's only 2, they were still really great, and for that, I'm going to give that a 6 out of 10. As I bring up the Rotten Tomatoes scorecard, as you can see, the critics came in at 87%, while the audience score came in at 53%. Now for the critics, there was only 9 reviews, and for the most part, they were all glowing, except for a couple. And for the audience, well, there was over the 250 mark, and to say the reviews across the board were absolute polar opposites of each other is an absolute understatement. As for every great review, you get a terrible review. This movie has really split fans right down the middle. You either love it or you hate it, and I would say I'm more on the love it side for sure. I've definitely put myself on that side. Now, reading some of the bad reviews, I am going to do my best to critique and not be biased, but I really think some of them didn't really make any great points, and I would ask if they even watched the movie, as they make some very vague and bold statements just to sort of dismiss it. But look, that's just my take on what I read. As they say, not everyone likes the same things, and that is true. But for me, I like this one. Anyway, so if we round it out, we are going to get a score of, that's right, 7 out of 10. So for me, when I saw they were going to do this adaptation of the comic book story and it was going to be a trilogy of movies, I was like really excited, as I thought this is a good idea in the sense that they are going to let the story breathe and give the time needed to tell all of it and not rush through anything in like a small movie. But I was worried that they would do the thing they always do, like they like to do, and that's shoehorn it into their DCU animated continuity and rework it, which of course they did yet again, which had me bummed. But I was surprised that I actually liked what they did with it. So yes, not a straight adaptation of a great story, but pretty much the next best thing, let's say. So I think for me, I'm not really a big Flash fan, but I really like what they did with this character across all of the Tomorrowverse movies. And this is one of my favorite versions of this character in any of the animated movies I've seen. Because he is not the brash, cocky, quippy character that we usually see. He is more of a grounded, down-to-earth kind of guy who, well, just happens to have superpowers, and I really enjoy that about him. I think for the most part, that really comes down to Matt Bomer's performance as much as it does the writing of the character as well. And for me, the story is more about this love story between Barry and Iris than it is this multiverse ending scenario, which, like the Justice Society World War II movie, in the same way that that movie wasn't about the war as such, it was more about, again, the love story between Barry and Iris. So for me, I actually loved that they started telling that love story in the early part of the Tomorrowverse, and then they brought it to fruition in the last couple of movies. Look, I really enjoyed that, and I really tip my hat to the writers. I really think they did a great job with that. And look, maybe I'm getting old, but I was a sucker for this love story. Sure, the whole multiverse story was enjoyable as well, but the love story that runs underneath, that really gives this movie its heart and impact at the end of the day, I think that's what really did it for me. And for that, I'm gonna give it, like, it was good, but it wasn't perfect. How about that? So for that, I'm going to give it a 16 out of 20. So for availability, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5, as look, it's still pretty common and you can find it anywhere at your local retail outlets or on eBay. As far as collectability goes, I'm going to give this a middle of the range at 3, as look, it is definitely a must-have for your DC fans, Tomorrowverse fans and completists, but not necessarily for everybody. The average price, you are looking at somewhere between the $16 to $42 mark for the Blu-ray, as it is relatively new, so it does pay to shop around. Let's go to the scorecard and see how this one shapes up. Now for the final score, we get a grand total of 78 out of 100. Wow, that is a great score for a great movie. Look, it was enjoyable, heartfelt and epic, all in the same movie. So let's hope that the next two movies can improve on the great base that was created by this film.
Onwards and upwards, tally-ho, to the star!
Next week on the show, we are going to look at Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2 on Blu-ray, so make sure you come back and check that out. Thanks for watching.